"We need more ambitious talent who can chase bigger numbers," said Marcus Hill, casually sliding a manila envelope across the sleek conference table. "The company's heading in a new direction." I didn't say anything at first. Just looked at the papers. "My name's Caleb Foster. I'm 45, and I spent the last 9 years as the senior account executive at Westridge Partners in Dallas, Texas. And today, I was being let go. Over nearly a decade, I built a client portfolio that brought in close to 40% of the company's revenue. Not through flashy marketing gimmicks, but through trust, consistency, and relentless hard work, hundreds of flights, thousands of meetings, weekends sacrificed, birthdays missed. All of that, apparently, meant nothing now. Marcus had only been with us for 6 months. The CEO brought him in as the new VP of sales, young, flashy, always in tailored suits and spouting buzzwords like scalability and disruption. He never once accompanied me to a client meeting. Not once. 3 weeks after he came on board, he revamped the commission structure. My pay got cut by 20% even though my numbers stayed solid. That was the first red flag. Then came the little things. My desk was moved to the far corner during office realignment. My name got quietly removed from key meeting invites. IT was rummaging through my computer while I was at lunch. All of it small enough to explain away. All of it unmistakable signs. I packed up 9 years of my life into one cardboard box, photos of my family, a ceramic mug my daughter made when she was 10, and a folder I always kept separate, filled with contact info for my most important clients. Old habit. Good habit, it turns out. Valerie from finance passed by and asked, "Need help moving? You switching offices?" Something like that. I smiled. No point in making a scene. As I rode the elevator down, I stood beside our CEO, Neil Travers. He was glued to his phone, didn't even acknowledge me. He had no idea what Marcus had just done. Or what it would mean. But he would, soon. I walked to my car with no anger, just clarity. Like waking up and realizing the dream you lived in wasn't even yours. Tomorrow would be interesting. I pulled into my driveway just as the sun was dipping behind the rooftops, casting long shadows across the lawn. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Travis Delmont, my biggest client. His company, Delmont Industrial, had a renewal meeting scheduled for next week. The text was simple. "Dinner Thursday still good? Let me know." He didn't know yet. No one did. I stared at the message, then set the phone down on the kitchen counter without replying. The silence in the house felt louder than usual. My wife, Claire, was visiting her sister in Phoenix, helping with the newborn. It was just me, the hum of the refrigerator, and a cardboard box full of reminders. 9 years of trust, of solving problems at midnight, of checking in during hurricanes and holidays. That's what I had with Travis and clients like him. Westridge didn't just let an employee go today. They cut the thread holding together over a dozen long-term accounts. And Marcus had no idea. I joined Westridge when it was still called Manson & Briggs Financial. Neil had personally recruited me from a competitor after I'd been passed up for promotion twice. "I need someone who knows the market and understands people," he said. "Not just someone who can talk numbers." For years, I delivered. Took our portfolio from regional mom-and-pop clients to national-level contracts. Signed on Redbridge Holdings when they bailed on our top rival. Secured the multi-year Westbrook deal when no one else could even get a meeting. I missed birthdays, ballet recitals, and more Little League games than I could count. Claire used to joke I was married to my clients. 3 promotions, 2 office remodels, 1 economic downturn, and I still kept us growing. From $5 million to $35 million. And nearly $14 million of that came through my accounts. But that didn't matter to Marcus. To him, I was old guard. A farmer, not a hunter. I poured myself a bourbon and opened my personal phone. 200 contacts, decision-makers, CEOs, people who knew me and trusted me. I hadn't made a single call yet. But I would. Tomorrow. I slept like I hadn't in years, no alarms. No early morning dashboards to check, no emails waiting to pounce. When I woke up, the light was already pouring through the blinds. I brewed some coffee, took my time. And sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. No panic. No bitterness. Just purpose. Travis's text was still unread. So were 3 others, from vendors and clients who probably hadn't heard the news yet. They would. The industry wasn't big, not really. Word moved fast. Especially when something big was about to break. I opened my laptop and pulled up my employment contract. The non-compete clause had teeth, but not for someone who'd been terminated. 1-year restriction, but only if I left on my own terms. Marcus had been sloppy. Firing me voided that limitation. I was free. The bourbon from last night still sat in the glass. I dumped it and poured fresh water. Today needed a clear head. At 10 a.m., I made 3 calls. Not to rant, not to pitch, just to inform. First. Travis. Just wanted to let you know, I'm no longer with Westridge as of yesterday. He was silent for a beat. What? Why? Who's handling our account? Probably Marcus Hill. Maybe Alicia Simmons. I'm not sure. The new girl? The one from the meeting? She doesn't know our systems. That's all I can say. It's your call how you want to proceed. Second and third calls went the same way, James Porter from Westbrook Capital and Elise Carlton from Carlton Properties. Same message. No drama, no pressure. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. They'd heard. At 2:17 p.m., Neil Travers finally called. I didn't answer. The voicemail said everything. Caleb, this is Neil. We need to talk about your exit. Several clients are raising concerns. Please call me back as soon as possible. I didn't. Instead, I drove across town to meet someone who owed me a favor, Aaron Lasker. An employment attorney whose restaurant I'd helped fund through a client connection 2 years ago. He looked over my paperwork, then smiled. They messed up, Caleb. They can't stop you from working. But they'll try to scare your clients. Be ready. I was. By 5 p.m., Westridge's legal team had already fired off an email reminding me of my confidentiality obligations. Standard boilerplate stuff, don't share trade secrets, don't solicit clients. But I wasn't soliciting anyone. I hadn't made a single pitch. All I'd done was answer my phone. An hour later. Marcus texted me directly. Let's talk about your exit package. Could include some consulting work if you're open to it. Too late. At 6 p.m., I got another message from Travis. Just got off the phone with your CEO and the VP who fired you. They said Alicia will handle things and offered us a 10% discount on renewal. What did you say? I replied. I told them I'd think about it. A moment passed before he sent the next one. Then I sent notice terminating the contract. Cited change in relationship management. Before I could respond, another notification popped up, James Porter had done the same. Then Elise Carlton. All of them pulling their business. Still, I said nothing. Then came the question I expected. Caleb. Where are you landing? Because wherever that is, that's where our business is going. By nightfall, 5 more clients had emailed termination notices to Westridge. 8 in total. Nearly $3. $5 million in annual contracts, gone in less than 24 hours. Julia, my former assistant, texted from her personal number. Complete chaos here. Marcus is freaking out. Neil's calling emergency board meetings. They're trying to spin it as client poaching. But no one had been poached. The trust didn't belong to Westridge. It was mine. At 9 p.m. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Caleb Foster. Speaking. This is Martin Gray, CEO of Grayson & Company. Heard you're a free agent. Several of our partners speak highly of you. I was quiet. Listening. We're prepared to offer a senior VP position, six-figure signing bonus, full control over your accounts, and a seat at the executive table. When do you need me? Tomorrow. If you're ready. I accepted, not out of revenge, but because they understood what I brought to the table. They didn't need a pitch deck. They saw the value for what it was. The next morning at Grayson & Company, I walked into a corner office larger than the one I'd left behind. No onboarding fluff. No empty pep talks, just a sleek nameplate on the door and a fully loaded support team already briefed on my background. It felt right. Later that afternoon, Julia called again. This time from a secure line. You need to hear something, she said, her voice hushed. It wasn't just Marcus trying to replace you with his people. That was the surface-level excuse. I leaned back in my chair as she continued. Westridge has been in talks to sell the firm. Veritas Capital made an offer, big money, but with a catch. They wanted to install their own relationship managers on key accounts. You were in the way. The pieces fell into place. Marcus hadn't been brought in to build revenue, he was there to quietly transition accounts away from me, make the client relationships look company-owned rather than personally held. It wasn't incompetence. It was calculated. They needed you out before the deal could move forward, Julia said. But once the clients left with you, Veritas pulled the offer. I didn't speak for a while after we hung up. I just stared out the window at downtown Dallas. 9 years. That's how long I'd invested in building those relationships, birthday texts. Hospital visits, Sunday night calls before Monday decisions. And to the company, I was just an obstacle to a transaction. I opened my inbox. 7 new messages from former clients. Word was spreading fast, Caleb Foster had landed, and clients were following. Later that evening, a final text from Neil. Can we meet? No lawyers. Just talk. I didn't answer. Instead, I called Travis. One question, I said. Did anyone from Veritas ever reach out to you directly? He hesitated. Yeah, actually. Some guy named Thomas. Said he was a consultant. Asking about our future needs. Thought it was odd. It wasn't odd. It was confirmation. While I was still working for them, Westridge had already been laying the groundwork to erase me. But the problem with removing a bridge is, sometimes the entire structure collapses. By the end of the next day, I had spoken with 4 more clients, people I'd built over a decade of trust with, and every single one confirmed the same story. Westridge had sent in strategic consultants. Supposedly from Veritas Capital, long before I was fired. They weren't consultants. They were scouts. They'd been testing the waters. Trying to figure out how loyal my clients were, to me or the brand. Now they had their answer. By midweek, I'd confirmed that 6 of my largest accounts had been approached without my knowledge. While I was still under contract, still flying out to close renewals and negotiate rates. Every dinner I'd missed with my family, every late-night email, all of it had been repackaged behind my back. That evening, I finally replied to Neil's text. No meeting necessary. I understand the Veritas situation completely. His response came quickly. It was a business decision, Caleb. Nothing personal. But it was personal. The clients weren't numbers in a CRM, they were people who called me when their systems failed or when they needed advice at 8 p.m. on a Saturday. I knew their kids' names, their spouses' birthdays, their business dreams. I had walked with them through mergers, layoffs, growth, and crisis. Westridge tried to turn those living relationships into bullet points on a balance sheet. That's why they lost them. I closed my laptop and looked around my new office. The skyline was the same. But the view felt different, clearer, sharper. Grayson wasn't just a new job, it was a place that respected what I'd built. Within 2 weeks, Grayson and Company had formalized contracts with 11 of my former clients. That equaled nearly $5 million in annual revenue, and counting. Not because I begged or pitched, but because, in this business, trust doesn't stay with logos. It stays with people. Westridge hadn't just fired a salesman. They'd severed their foundation. And from what I was hearing, the collapse was just beginning. 3 weeks into my new role at Grayson and Company, an invitation landed in my inbox, the Midwest Financial Services Conference. Panel topic: Building Client Loyalty in a Transactional Market. I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. I accepted the invite. Not to gloat, not to make a scene, but because I knew exactly who would be in the audience. Neil Travers never missed that conference. Neither did several members of Westridge's board. Grayson backed me fully. They gave me everything Westridge never had: 2 dedicated analysts, full marketing support, and most importantly, equity. Every client I brought in didn't just boost my commission, it helped build something I owned. I spent weeks preparing. No dramatic slides. No buzzwords. Just data. My analysts and I pulled performance metrics from every client who had followed me over. The results spoke louder than any speech could. Client satisfaction scores up 22 points. Service response times cut in half. Implementation costs down 30%. These weren't empty wins, they were operational proof that when a company invests in relationships, not just transactions, everyone wins. The morning of the conference, I arrived early. Spotted Neil almost immediately, standing by the coffee station, stiff as ever, whispering with 2 board members. He saw me. I nodded. He didn't nod back. During the panel, the moderator asked about building long-term client trust. When it was my turn, I kept it direct. In today's market, clients don't stay for flashy tech or low rates. They stay because they trust the person who answers when things go sideways. Relationships aren't company assets, they're human ones. I presented the metrics. No mention of Westridge by name, just case studies, clean data, and quiet truth. Then came the question from the audience, a young analyst, maybe from Westridge. Isn't your move, and the client loss that followed, exactly why companies fear giving too much autonomy to relationship managers? The room went still. I smiled. The clients didn't follow me out of loyalty. They followed the results. If your company can't meet their needs, they'll find someone who can. That's not fear, that's the market doing its job. By the end of the day, 5 new companies had sent letters of intent to Grayson. The market had spoken. That night, after the conference, I checked my phone. Westridge had made the financial news again. The headline was short and sharp. Westridge announces internal restructuring, VP of Sales steps down amid revenue decline. Marcus Hill was out. The Veritas acquisition, dead in the water. Their stock had dropped another 8% in just 2 days. I closed the article without even cracking a smile. There was no satisfaction in it. Just a quiet confirmation that everything I'd built had value they hadn't recognized until it was too late. Back at Grayson, things were moving fast. New client onboarding was non-stop. Our Q2 forecast had just been revised upward. I was scheduled to present the numbers to our board the following week. Then, right before I left the office, my assistant handed me an envelope marked personal. Inside was a note. From Alicia Simmons. The same Alicia Marcus had assigned to learn from me before I was fired. Hi Caleb, I've been let go. Along with most of the sales team. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how everything played out. I didn't know the full picture. If Grayson's hiring, I'd love a shot. I still have a lot to learn. And I know I learned more from watching you than anyone else. I sat with that note for a moment before forwarding it to HR. Worth interviewing, I wrote. Not her fault what happened. My phone buzzed again, this time from Travis Delmont. Heard the news about your promotion. Congrats, partner. Thanks, I replied. No, he said. Thanks to you. We followed value. Always will. After I hung up, I opened the desk drawer and pulled out a framed quote Claire had given me last Christmas. It read, "The best revenge is massive success." I turned the frame over and set it face down. That part of the story was done. Tomorrow, I'd approve 3 new hires. All with the same equity sharing structure I had. No one at Grayson would build something, only to have it taken from them. Not on my watch. 1 year to the day after Marcus Hill slid that envelope across the conference table. I signed the final documents making me a full equity partner at Grayson and Company. It was official. The firm had grown by 34% since I joined. My personal client portfolio now accounted for nearly $20 million in annual revenue, more than half of which had followed me from Westridge without a single pitch, just trust and performance. I closed the Manila folder and looked out across the Dallas skyline. Same city. Same buildings. But everything else, my role, my value, my future, had completely transformed. Claire walked into my office with 2 coffees and handed me one. Signed and sealed, she asked. Signed and official. She studied my face, searching for a reaction. You don't look as happy as I thought you'd be. I shook my head slowly. Just thinking. Not about Westridge anymore. About what I'm building now. And how I want to do it right this time. That morning, I'd approved 3 new account manager hires. Not just with solid salaries, but with profit-sharing agreements built into their contracts. The same structure I negotiated for myself. Not because I had to, but because I knew what it felt like to build something only to watch it be used against you. That wasn't going to happen here. My phone buzzed. A message from Travis Delmont. Heard about the partnership. Couldn't happen to a better man. Congrats, Caleb. Thanks to you, I texted back. He replied almost instantly. No, thanks to who you are. We just followed the value. I leaned back in my chair and let that sink in. For years, I thought loyalty was about sacrifice. But now I understood, it's about alignment. When people respect how you work and why you do it, they stick with you. No contracts required. Some victories are loud. Others just settle into your bones and stay there. This one was the latter. And I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, just before I shut down for the day, my assistant walked in holding a small package, courier delivery, no return address. Inside was a handwritten note on Westridge letterhead. It was from Neil Travers. You were right. I put transactions above relationships, and it cost the company everything. If you're ever willing to meet for coffee, I'd like a chance to apologize. No agenda, just an honest conversation. I folded the note and slid it into my jacket pocket. Maybe someday. But not yet. That evening, Claire and I headed out early. We had tickets to our son's high school band performance. I hadn't missed one since joining Grayson. It felt like a small thing, but it wasn't. A year ago, I would have skipped it for a last-minute flight or a client dinner. Not anymore. On the drive, we passed the old Westridge building. The sign was being taken down. According to the local business journal, they were relocating to a smaller office in the suburbs. Downsizing, rebranding, whatever term they wanted to use, the meaning was clear. They weren't who they used to be. Then again, neither was I. The next morning, I finalized an internal mentorship program for new hires. I made it optional, but backed it personally. I wanted junior staff to grow not just fast, but right, learning what I'd learned, without having to go through what I had. The future wasn't just about scaling revenue. It was about building legacy. Later that week, I opened a gift Claire had left on my desk. A framed parchment with the same quote from last year. The best revenge is massive success. This time, I placed it front and center on the credenza behind me. Not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd earned, and how. Because sometimes, the real victory isn't just rising after they count you out. It's rising on your own terms, and never looking back.